Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of November 22nd to November 28th. I'm your host, Aaron Spears.
And I'm Dave Huffman. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and Marriage Story.
We always like to start off the show with our movie of the week, so you have a good, positive, wholehearted recommendation from both of us. So, Dave, what is the movie people should be watching or checking out this week?
They should definitely be watching The Irishman. They should definitely be coming to see Martin Scorsese on the big screen. Yes, it's going to be on Netflix soon, but you know, it was just insane how many people came to see it here at the Cedar Lee over the weekend. It was exclusively here this week. This coming Friday, it's going to be opening up at the Capitol Theater, Chagrin Cinemas, Tower City Cinemas, our theater in Pittsburgh. So it's expanding to a lot more locations this week. But of course, since I can't remember if we've discussed this, but like the big national chains are refusing to play it because of the short window between it's on before it's streaming. Whereas we're a little company and we don't have those stringent rules, and we understand that people still want to have access to some of these great movies. And
an independent company.
Yes, a little.
That sounds better.
An independent company. Yes, you're right. But I mean, I think people should definitely take advantage of the opportunity to see what's one of our greatest filmmakers' greatest movies on the big screen.
Well, just skip ahead then too. That's my recommendation. I caught it twice this weekend because I'm Scorsese obsessive, and I was like, well, crap, if it may only be a week. I don't know. So I'm going to get it in now. But after the first viewing, it's so overwhelming and there's so much that like my head was just kind of swimming. And before I could even take any notes, it's like, I need to jump back in. Like it's, again, just the quick mention right away. It doesn't feel like it's as long as it is when you look at the running time. It moves really, really fast. But before we discuss it any further, though, I wanted to ask too, how long has it been since there was like an exclusive at the theater, especially like a marquee title like this?
Oh, like a marquee title like this?
Yeah, because like that just doesn't really happen anymore. The way with everything being digital on a hard drive, you can kind of just send around all these copies and.
Yeah, I mean, they once that we converted from film to digital, it became less and less common for these sort of exclusive little movies to to be playing here at the Cedar Lee only.
I know it's your catchphrase that everything's a little movie, but The Irishman is not a little movie.
Irishman is not a little movie. It's $160 million. Yeah, that is not a little movie. Major director, major stars. Yeah, cost a fortune.
Which is kind of an interesting byproduct of this whole streaming theatrical window era now, where it's like, sweet, you get exclusives that clearly wouldn't be there in a traditional sense for a Martin Scorsese movie going out into theaters, I don't think.
I agree.
So as prolific as Scorsese is, my brain was trying to go like, well, which movie of Scorsese's is this like? It's definitely not Goodfellas or Casino, other than there is a corruption crime element, obviously, to this one. My first thought leaving the theater was it really reminded me of The Aviator, because it was like kind of like one person, very biographical from his point of view. But just like The Aviator has multiple, in my head, The Aviator's got like the aviation segment, there's the Hollywood segment, and there's like the romance segments. They all kind of like intermingle in that plot, overlaid obviously of his mental state throughout all of those. And this one has got like the very first scene, it's old Frank telling the story in the nursing home. You've got the road trip story, and then you've got the rising through the ranks of the Teamsters local, but then also like the mob. So you have again like a triple narrative going on with this one. And then the ending, as we mentioned I can't remember if I mentioned this on the air or not. You watched Silence or didn't watch Silence?
I've never seen Silence, no.
So this one, the ending of it, the last like 20 to 30 minutes, like you mentioned, The Irishman has a really good kind of pathos to it by the end, which you don't really get in Scorsese movies. That's the last, again, like 20 minutes or so of silence. Sort of just like, not really an acceptance of fate, but sort of like reconciling with what, what kind of life you have led.
That's definitely The Irishman. Yeah.
Just because like it's such a, the inner workings of unions and then crisscrossing with gangster culture in Irishman that, you had told me that ahead of time, but still like as you watch the story of The Irishman, you don't really expect to have such an emotional payoff by the end.
I didn't read the article, but I saw there was a couple of headlines. I guess there was some people have been like Anna Paquin's character not having much dialogue and being kind of silent in a lot of scenes.
So important,
kind of
though.
like, I know, but there was the one, and I just didn't have time to read the article, but the
Yeah.
headline was something about like Anna Paquin responds to critics who, like as if because they didn't give her lines, like it was an insult to her or something. I'm like,
Right.
the character doesn't need to necessarily speak to have an impact in the scene. So, yeah.
Well, her impact in the scenes, though, not even just the part she plays the older part, but that character's around
Right.
from the time of a small child, and it's the audience character where you're seeing the impact of violence on his family.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very, very integral, not critical.
Yes.
Oh, it's so hard because people generally haven't seen it, and you want to talk about it, but I also don't want to,
Yeah. Don't spoil it.
ruin too much.
Yeah,
I was trying to keep it to
just
just what was sort of in the trailers and what you see there, but it's so fascinating. You mentioned Joe Pesci last week when we were talking about it and how he's such like this quiet force, which is weird given Joe Pesci's
Yeah.
career with Scorsese, that he's a quiet force in a Scorsese movie.
And it makes him stand out in the film, I feel like.
It really does.
Because of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
But De Niro, I want to give him a lot of credit on this one just because I was kind of picking on him last week when we were saying, like, is this the dirty grandpa kind of era of De Niro, or is he, back, stretching his acting muscles? And he's so good in this one.
Yeah, he's
and
very
kind
good.
of unlike any De Niro character I've seen, which is saying something because he's got so many iconic characters.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you could talk for a day and a half about
Yes, but we have movies to
Scorsese
talk
and
about,
probably
so.
the Irishman in general. But yeah, let's talk about the new movies that we're opening up. Kind of the anti-The Irishman. We're opening up the new film A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, directed by Marielle Heller, which is, of course, based on the true story of real-life friendship between Fred Rogers and journalist Tom Janud.
Mr. Rogers, I'm here to interview you.
It is so nice to meet you.
You okay?
I'm profiling Mr. Rogers.
Lloyd, please don't ruin my childhood.
This piece will be for an issue about heroes. Do you consider yourself a hero?
We are trying to give the world positive ways of dealing with their feelings.
Yeah? Like what?
There are many things you can do. You can play all the lowest keys on a piano at the same time.
You love broken people. Like me.
Sometimes we have to ask for help, and that's okay. I think the best thing we can do is to let people know that each one of them is precious.
Well, this film, of course, played at the Toronto International Film Festival, got a great response from people. There's Oscar buzz for Tom Hanks, of course. Whenever they announced that Tom Hanks was playing Mr. Rogers, everyone was sort of like, well, of course, you need to get the nicest man in Hollywood to play the nicest man to ever
On TV.
walk the face of the earth. And since I am a Pittsburgh native, of course, Fred Rogers is, even more special to me than he is to everybody else, because when I was growing up, since I knew Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was filmed in Pittsburgh, I thought Pittsburgh was like Hollywood. I just assumed everything was filmed in the big fancy city of Pittsburgh just because Mr. Rogers was. And when I was in high school, I got to tour the studio and got to actually go inside King Friday's castle and Henrietta Pussycat's tree. So it's pretty exciting stuff is all I could say, having Mr. Rogers after the documentary last year, which was amazing, and now we've got this feature film kind of really solidifying his legacy, and as people are kind of clamoring for niceness in America right now. And
Right.
we could really use a Fred Rogers.
Well, they could really use the documentary a year ago, and I'm presuming they could really use, the fictional version of it, this year. The two films we're opening this week too have a kind of an interesting parallel story going, where we've got Marielle Heller, who's kind of like, I don't know at what point you stop becoming an up and coming filmmaker when it's your third feature film,
Right.
But in like kind of the auteur world, you're still sort of establishing, themes or trends or ideas that she wants to explore in movies. And so she started off with Diary of a Teenage Girl, which was a amazing coming of age story, very
great film.
raw and honest. and then did Can You Ever Forgive Me, which garnered quite a bit of Oscar buzz and awards.
Another amazing movie. Yep.
2 years ago, I think.
No, it was just last year.
Was that just last year? Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Time is becoming elusive to me. And yeah, now coming out with Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, looking, like you said, it's not like a full Fred Rogers biopic, but the story of, a journalist kind of taking a look at Mr. Rogers and the career and his intentions behind the hit show there. So it's kind of interesting to see a director kind of establishing the themes and ideas that she wants to work with within her career, specifically not necessarily taking studio projects either, projects that she very much cares about and wants to pursue as a storyteller. And then the second film we have is Noah Baumbach's new film, written and directed by Noah Baumbach. That is Marriage Story, which is an incisive and compassionate look at a marriage breaking up and a family trying to stay together.
What I love about Nicole, she is a mother who plays, really plays.
What I love about Charlie, he loves being a dad. He loves all the things you're supposed to hate, like waking up at night.
She knows when to push me and when to leave me alone.
He never lets other people keep him from what he wants to do.
Dad, you're too far.
I know. It's not easy for her to close a cabinet.
He's incredibly neat.
She's brave.
He's brilliant. He's very competitive. So I'll tell Charlie what's happening, and Cassie, you then hand him the envelope.
I just get nervous.
Can you unserve?
What do you mean, like take it back? Charlie and I are getting a divorce, Mom. You can't be friends with him anymore.
Gee, Mom. Charlie Bird.
Mom. Mom? Mom.
What?
You know, most people in my business, you're just transactions to them. I like to think of you as people.
Oh, okay, good.
You remind me of myself on my second marriage.
So the caveat here, Dave, is we're not allowed to talk about your hatred for Greenberg during our discussion of Marriage Story. See previous episodes.
It's the reason I hate that movie so much, aside from it just being bad, is because I really like Noah Baumbach's other works. I think he's great.
Yes.
So whenever you feel like a filmmaker that you know is capable of amazing things does something that to you is just so egregiously terrible, it really stands out and leaves a mark, which is why I have a hard time not ranting about Greenberg.
Right.
But while I haven't seen Marriage Story yet, everything that I've heard about it leading up to this tells me that it is probably going to be in my top 10 list. I've had friends that have seen screenings of it that have just said like it's just so emotional and so touching and, just feels very real and honest. So I think that audiences are really clicking with it, and it's got, Adam Driver is certainly on the short list for Best Actor for this year for his work in that film.
So it definitely seems like well-tread territory for Noah Baumbach. I mean, he's done the dysfunctional family, to put it mildly, subgenre. He's got Squid and the Whale, While We're Young, The Meyerowitz Stories, new and selected. That went right to Netflix, unfortunately, a year or two ago. This one seems to be really honing in a bit more on the husband-wife, or soon to be ex-husband, ex-wife dynamic in a way that some of the other ones weren't. Like While We're Young has that interplay with like generational couples and how they can kind of interact or inspire each other or affect each other. Squid and the Whale is a bit more. I haven't seen that one in a while. It does include the parents, but they're more supporting characters. It's more the children's perspective.
It really focuses more from the kids' perspective of their dealing with their parents. But when you mentioned While We Were Young, of course, that's got Adam Driver in it as well. Yeah. That was one of his first kind of big screen movie roles after, kind of coming on the scene with Girls on HBO. So it's interesting to see that he has really turned into such an I don't want to say excessively casted, but I mean, like, you think about
he is
how
in
many
everything,
movies,
though. Yeah,
he has been in a lot of stuff. I mean, like everything from Jim Jarmusch's last movie to the new Star Wars movie that's coming out. So I mean, like, that's a very wide range of filmmakers, and his agent is obviously doing an amazing job of making sure that the right projects are coming to him, because he appears to be getting offered almost everything.
It seems like it. Well, we mentioned last week because he was in The Report, and then that opens one week. The next week is Marriage Story, and then like next month is outer space
Star Wars
opera. Yeah. So it's
So yeah, this will be 4 feature films just this year alone.
Right.
So he does have to be careful about oversaturation, because at some point it does become almost like a joke. Like when you think back to like Michael Caine went through this period, and certainly Nicolas Cage is still in that period, and like people just kind of make fun of you whenever you're in too many things, even whenever you're very good. So
I, for some reason, never really looked at Noah Baumbach's biography before. I did not realize until a couple of days ago when I was putting the notes together for the show, he's the son of 2 different film critics. So that also, I mean, that is clearly infused into, going back to While We're Young, one of the main characters is a filmmaker receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. It's Ben Stiller's dad in that one, I believe, isn't it?
yes.
But that definitely seems like he has like the writer's approach to film, because when you think of like, go back to The Irishman, like Scorsese definitely has his own visual language he uses when he tells his stories that you don't think of the visual language necessarily of Noah Baumbach, maybe in like a, Bergman, Woody Allen kind of visual language, but it's not a real flashy storytelling. It's much more character and dialogue driven, more of like a novelist's approach to filmmaking than like, a keen filmmaker's eye. I did want to also mention, just because we're going to be talking about it probably in the next month or so, he's been in a relationship for a long time with Greta Gerwig, who has her own film coming out that is, again, getting all kinds of critical raves, Little Women.
Yeah, that'll be opening on Christmas Day here at the Cedar Lee.
That feels like a perfect Christmas Day movie.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking it was coming out earlier than that, but no, that makes a lot of sense for Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day right now, but studios like to change their mind at the last minute, as we all know.
That's true. So big asterisk next to that, I guess, for now. So it almost looks like they might have competing films this year during the Oscar race, where like he's Marriage Story is high 90% on Metacritic, and all the early buzz for Little Women is like, oh my God, you're going to want to see this movie as soon as you can because it's going to get all the awards.
Right.
And then I found it hilarious that the next project they're working on together is Barbie, the movie, after these two, which just doesn't scream, I don't know.
Think of how amazing that will be, though. Like,
right,
you know what I mean? Like, that, if you're going to have anybody actually make a Barbie movie, I want it to be Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. I mean, like, that's the only way I would want to watch a movie about Barbie.
Starring Margot Robbie. So it's,
I mean, it's going to be, I think, shockingly amazing is all I can say.
Right.
I have extremely high expectations. So when that finally comes out and it just becomes some sort of like unbelievable pop culture joke because it's just unmitigatably terrible, I won't be surprised. But right now, on paper, I couldn't be more excited for that as a concept.
Right, which I am definitely not the demographic for a Barbie movie, and if you got me excited to see it, I don't know, that's saying something. So I was initially kind of skeptical because Noah Baumbach also co-wrote Madagascar 3. So like he'll take a writing assignment here and there. And I was like, well, he and Greta Gerwig, they're writing, co-writing Barbie together, but then it's also Greta Gerwig's next film she's directing. So I'm even more baffled and intrigued all at the same time, knowing that. And they got LP from Run the Jewels to do the soundtrack. So it's just, it's a very confusing mess. That I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how that turns out. But
God bless whatever studio executive greenlit their concept, because that's pretty amazing.
But anyway, for now we have this week Marriage Story to enjoy and Little Women to look forward to next month. We don't need to worry about Barbie because that's still not even
a ways away
yet.
Yes.
So worry about that a little bit later. And we'll be right back with a special event coming to the theater this week. Well, special events are a bigger portion of the modern theatrical programming, and that is obviously always the case here at the Cedar Lee. So we want to let you know a few special events we have coming up this week.
And this week we've got the Met Opera Live in HD presenting Philip Glass's Akhenaten. That's going to be live Saturday, November 23rd at 12:55 p.m., both here at the Cedar Lee, the Apollo Theater, and Chagrin Cinemas. This features countertenor Anthony Roth Constanzo, headlines American composer Philip Glass's transcendent contemporary creation with Karen Kamensak conducting. And this is interesting. If you watch the trailer for this, it doesn't look like any other opera that we've ever played.
Right.
It has like a lot of acrobatics in it and jugglers, and it's gotten a lot of press and some great notices so far in New York. And I know it's one that people have actually been anxiously awaiting.
Which is weird in the era of like modern operas, because there's been other ones that we've screened before, and there's still crowds come out, but you see people leave and they're like, oh, it's too modern. I was like, what do you mean it's too modern? Like, I don't like anything written, after 1930 or whatever. Like, the word modern in opera is so fascinating just because it's been around for so long as a medium.
And then I also that's the only special event we have this week because it's the holiday week, so there's not a lot of special events going on. But I did want to give an early plug since we're heading into the holiday, like Christmas holiday season, to talk about some of our upcoming Christmas shows, which include that's become an annual tradition of showing the Polar Express. We're going to be showing the Polar Express on December 14th at 11:30 a.m. in 3D, and then on Sunday, December 15th at 11:30 a.m. in 2D. And some of those shows actually do sell out. So if you're thinking about going, it's just $1. Get your tickets in advance, and you'll be all set. And then for grown-ups, we're bringing back a couple of special shows of Love Actually on Tuesday, December 17th. I believe that's going to be at 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and that is playing here at the Cedar as well as Chagrin Cinemas. So that is certainly a new modern holiday classic. And as a special bonus for our Marquee Reward members, if you come to see Love Actually and show your card, it is 2-for-1 admission as a special holiday gift from us to you.
This might be controversial, Dave, but I wanted to ask, are you a Love Actually fan?
I'm a total Love Actually fan because, as you know, I love everything British.
Oh, my God, that's
it's
right.
hard to be more British
that.
than that movie. And I feel like I'm the only American or one of the handful of Americans that actually understand the significance of the entire subplot about the Christmas number one.
I'll say the song,
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing in England. Like, it's not just made up for the movie. Like, that's like a real thing. Like, there's people that put bets on what's going to be the Christmas number one. It's like an iconic thing in England to have the Christmas number one single. And, Ant and Dec are like, British TV celebrities that are in the movie. So I just eat up every little second of that movie.
Right.
Yes, it's completely schmaltzy and button pushing, but I love it. So yeah, I'm going to go watch it again in the theater. What do you think of that?
I did not know that was a contest until I saw the movie on video like a year or two after it came out. So I've followed it every year since then because it's pretty entertaining. You get some like pretty wild entries into that Christmas song contest. But I always feel like a pariah when I say like I don't care for the movie. Like I don't know what it is about that, and I constantly get crap from people because I was like, is somebody else out there must not care for this movie? Like the charm doesn't work on me for this one.
It. Yeah, no, it's a love or hate movie, but there's definitely, I know several people that don't really like it, but I think it's great, and so do a lot of other people, which is why we're bringing it back.
Right. Yeah.
When we showed it a couple years ago, this had intended to maybe be like maybe an annual tradition here at the Cedar Lee. We'll see if people continue to come back, but they did well the last time we showed it.
Well, audience, the ball's in your court if you want to make it a tradition.
Exactly.
Start buying those tickets now. So if you're a regular listener and are wondering where our Cedar Lee 3 picks are for this week, follow the links in the show notes and head over to any of our social media accounts where we posted our picks for films depicting marital strife this week, kind of inspired by Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story. Next week is going to be a little bit of a weird one because on the Thanksgiving holiday, the new films start on Wednesday, not on Friday for the weekend. So the episode will still appear in your ears, in your devices on Thursday morning. But the film Honey Boy is opening, so that'll actually be opening a day before the episode comes out. So that'll be opening on Wednesday, November 27th. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedar Lee Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.